Hello everyone and welcome to the 7th episode of the GTA fact-finding series, where we're going to be talking about the best race start techniques that you can have in GTA Online. So there's two different types of these. There's for normal races where you have the usual countdown timer at the start, but there's also different techniques that you can use for drag races or event races as well, where you don't have that timer. But first up, we're going to go over the race start techniques for normal races where you have that countdown timer, and the first one is basically just full throttle all the way. So this is where you just hold the right trigger all the way throughout this start phase, you know, all the way on, right trigger completely down, full accelerator all the way through, and it is very slow. You get a lot of wheel spin at the start of a race, and it's easily the slowest way to start any of these races in a regular GTA racing format. As we'll see when we compare the lap times that all of these get, just to go up to this first checkpoint, it takes 16.38 seconds, so keep that in mind for future comparisons. So the next one that you can do is using a bit of throttle control. Now, this is basically where you press the right trigger down only as much as you really need so that you don't spin the wheels at the start, and it is a much better way of getting off the line. As you can see here, it's kind of it's much less wheel spin, and you kind of have to guess and get it right in terms of how much you press the right trigger down, how much acceleration you put on, but if you do manage to do it well, it will certainly give you a quicker time, and as you can see there, 0.4 of a second quicker with a 15.91. Now, this is the one that probably most people know about, which is the regular boost. So this is where you wait until the go pops up on the countdown, and then you press the right trigger down. So you don't do anything with the right trigger throughout the whole start phase. As soon as go pops up, then you press your finger on the right trigger and you get a boost at the start of the race, as you saw there. That is a regular boost. It's, you know, it does give you a little bit of an advantage over the throttle control. And it's probably the one that most people will use in a regular racing format. Obviously, as you can see, 15.48 seconds there, a little bit, another half a second taken off. Now, something else that we've got is the super boost. Now, this is the best way to start a regular race. I've already made a video about this previously, but it was quite a while ago, but I will leave a link to it in the description to explain it fully. But basically, you hold the accelerator down all the way through the start phase. Then when you see the 1 on the screen disappear, you take your finger off the right trigger. Then when the go pops up, you put it back on, and that gives you a little bit extra revs for the start of the race. The same boost, but it is quicker than the regular boost. As you can see here, 15.35 seconds, and if you were to do it even better than that, because you know you can actually practice it and work on your timing with that, you will get an even bigger boost from that super boost. So there is something that is better than just the regular boost that you guys, probably most of you, will use. That is called the super boost, and I have made a video about it previously. Again, I'm going to link it down in the description. But as you can see from the comparison here, you know, in the top left we've got the full throttle, and in the top right we've got the throttle control. Bottom left is the regular boost, and bottom right is the super boost. You'll notice that, you know, there is a big difference, especially between the super boost and just full throttle all the way, over a second there. So it is worth practicing these, it is worth doing these, and the super boost, if you do practice it and get it, you know, even better in terms of timing, you will be able to do really well with it. So, you know, you're free to click the link on the screen right now, or check in the description at the end of the video as well for the video on that, explaining how to do it in more detail. So the next type of event really is drag or event races. Now this is where there is no countdown timer. So in a drag racing format, it might be a grenade that starts the race, or it might be someone stood there and does a motion that starts the race. You don't have that timer, so you're not going to be able to get those boosts that we've seen previously. Again, the first type of this is just full throttle. So as soon as the explosion goes off or the race has started, you just slam your finger on the right trigger, full throttle, you get a lot of wheel spin. Again, it's not quite the best way to do it, and as we'll see, it does give you the slowest time to that first checkpoint. Here we've got 16.97 seconds. So the next type that you can do is again the same as before with throttle control. So this is where you again just put only a little bit of accelerator on, only a little bit of right trigger. You don't push it down all the way, you just push it down enough that it doesn't give you very much wheel spin and get you a nice launch. Again, we wait for the grenade explosion, and then away we go. A lot cleaner at the start, you know, no wheel spin, nothing major, and you get a much cleaner start to the race. And as we'll see in terms of the time to this first checkpoint, it's much quicker than just slamming that accelerator all the way down and getting a lot of wheel spin, 16.57 seconds. So the next one is using the handbrake and throttle control. So this is basically exactly the same as the throttle control, but you hold your finger on the handbrake button, either X or R1, or right bumper, and during that phase, during the time that you've got the handbrake on, you're also pressing the right trigger down as well. So by doing that, you start at a higher level of revs than what you normally would, and then you release the handbrake as soon as the race starts, and then away you go. It's very similar to using throttle control, and you do have to kind of guess where you need the accelerator down. Obviously you don't want it down all the way because you'll just get a lot of wheel spin again, but if you do it right, it can be slightly quicker than just using throttle control. But the best way to start a race like this, either a drag race or an event race, is using the regular brake. So what we do with this is hold the regular brake and the accelerator at the same time. That stops you from moving backwards, and then basically you just try to find the spot in the accelerator where you need to be so that you don't spin the wheels. As you can see, you know, I'm just finding that at this point. You basically modulate the right trigger to the point where you aren't spinning the wheels, but it's literally just on the edge of spinning the wheels. That gives you the absolute best start to the race that you can get. So as soon as the explosion goes, you release the brake, the regular brake, the left trigger, and you keep the accelerator where it is, and then you can put it down as soon as you get going, and away you go. As we'll see in terms of the time that you get to that first checkpoint, it is again slightly quicker than using the handbrake method or throttle control. They are all reasonably close, but certainly in a drag race and, you know, an event race, you do want the best start that you can get, and that's what we'll see here. In terms of the comparison that we'll see on the screen here, we'll see that the bottom right, which is using the regular brake, is a lot quicker than everything else, and using the full throttle in the top left is just the worst thing that you could possibly do. Having said that, using throttle control and the handbrake are very close together, as well as using the regular brake, but it all depends on the car as well. Different cars will give you a different benefit to others. So how do you do this? How do you do this regular brake technique? And that's what I explain now. It's basically a case of getting to the point where your wheels aren't spinning. So this is kind of the first stage of it, what you're seeing now. That's the first part. Once you've done that successfully, then you're alright. You need to press the left trigger and the right trigger at the same time, both all the way down, and this basically stops you from going anywhere. The wheels will start to spin at this point, and then you need to release the right trigger a little bit so that the wheels stop spinning. But you don't want to release the right trigger all the way. You just want to release it a little bit, to maybe about 25%, so that by having your finger on the left trigger, you aren't reversing back. The right trigger in the acceleration is still keeping you in the same place. Then what you need to do is gradually increase the amount of force on the right trigger until the wheels start to spin. And you're trying to basically modulate the accelerator to that point where the wheels stop spinning, and you want it to be at the exact point before the wheels start to spin. And then basically all you do for the start of the race, once the explosion goes off or whatever, you just take your finger off the brake, off the left trigger, leave the right trigger where it is. You'll get the perfect launch with no wheel spin, and then as soon as you've gone a few meters, just completely put the right trigger all the way down, and you can floor it from there on out. That is easily the best way to start one of these regular races, a drag race or an event race where you don't have the countdown. And I'll show you here now in an example how effective this can be. In an actual event, this is the first round of the multi-class endurance championship that we did. Obviously we're in a grid format, so we have to do this way to start the race. You see the brake lights come on my car. That's me starting this regular brake method, and combining this with the mid-drive speed boost that we saw in the previous video, this can be a very effective way to start a race. I'm currently in 4th place at the start of the grid. I'm in 4th place on the grid. I get a good start from the regular drive on the top 2 guys. Then I get the mid-drive speed boost on as well. And by the time we get to the first corner, I'm in the lead. And that was really helpful for me in that race, in that event. The very first round, get a really good start. that's what it's all about. And if you do want to learn more about the mid-drive speed boost, again, you can check out the previous video. I'll link it in the description. So why does this work? Why is this the best way to start a drag race or an event race like this where you don't have that countdown? Well, here's a graph. Don't be scared of that. I will explain it. On the bottom, you've got the amount of throttle application that you have. So basically how much you push down that right trigger at the start of a race, from 0%, not pushing it at all, to 100%, you know, completely all the way down. And then on the left, you've got the amount of wheel spin that you get. So 0% wheel spin to all the way to 100% wheel spin, just completely spinning the wheels. And this is basically a graph of a standard car. Say, for example, the Banshee that we've just seen. For 50% of the throttle, you're not going to get any wheel spin, and that's the ideal point that you want to be at. That green marker right there is exactly where you want to be. You want to put as much power on as you possibly can whilst getting no wheel spin whatsoever. These yellow areas are kind of okay, you know, the yellow area on the left, you are not getting any wheel spin, which is great, but you could also get a little bit more power from it as well. You know, you're not putting on the maximum amount of power that you really could. And then the yellow area on the right, you're putting on a little bit too much power, you're getting a little bit too much wheel spin, but it's not too bad. The red areas are the worst place to be. You know, on the right hand side, you're putting on far too much power, you're getting far too much wheel spin, you're not going to get a very good launch off the line at all. And then on the left, you're pretty much putting on not enough power at all, so again, you're not going to get a very good launch. Yes, no wheel spin, but no power either. So the top right hand red area is basically what we saw from the full throttle example that we had. You know, the race starts and you just slam the accelerator down all the way, the right trigger to 100%, and you just get a load of wheel spin, and it's a really bad start. It was the worst that we saw. The two yellow areas, they come from the throttle control method and the handbrake method as well. So in the throttle control method, you're most likely to be on that left hand section in the yellow area. You know, you're putting on say 20-30% throttle, not as much as what you possibly could have to be perfect, but you're not going to get any wheel spin. Whereas the right hand area is more likely what you're going to get from the handbrake method. You know, you've got the handbrake on, you may end up putting sort of anywhere between 40, 50, 60, 70% throttle on whilst holding the handbrake down. Sometimes you might be a little bit above and get a bit of wheel spin, sometimes you might be a little bit below. But the defining characteristic about both of these methods is that yes, they are good, but they're not going to be perfect. You're not always going to get the exact perfect amount of throttle control on each start, and you're going to end up somewhere in those areas of yellow. You know, it's either not enough throttle but no wheel spin, or a little bit too much throttle but a bit too much wheel spin as well. The ideal point is this green area, and that's where the regular brake method really does shine, because what's happening is by basically using the regular brake to stop you, you're allowing the car and the rear wheels to get to the point where they are going to start spinning up and slipping. So as soon as you get to 51% throttle, the wheels will start to spin. So that's why you come off the throttle the tiniest little bit, you get in that green zone, and you get the start of the race absolutely perfect. You're maximizing the amount of throttle that you can have for no wheel spin at the start of a race, and that's why it's so effective. Now, this is not necessarily going to be the same for every single car. You know, every single car is going to be slightly different, and this itself is just an example, but this is why I find these types of starts the most interesting, because you know the regular starts and the start of a regular race with the countdown, you just press the boost and get it whenever you can. But these are the really interesting ones because it's all about managing that wheel spin at the start of a race. You don't want to be in the red zones. Ideally, you want to be in the green zone. The yellow zones maybe are okay, but it's all about the technique that you use to do that. So all cars aren't going to be like this. You're going to get some cars that are slightly different, have different graphs, and have different characteristics. So for example, something like the Dominator, which has a lot of power and not that much grip, might look a little bit something like this instead. You know, as soon as you get to about 20% throttle, you get a load of wheel spin. So, you know, as soon as you put 30% throttle on, you're already at 50% wheel spin. So this is where the regular brake method really does help, because it's very difficult to know that amount of throttle that you need using say the handbrake method or the throttle control method, chances are using those methods you're going to end up putting too much throttle on. So this is why the handbrake, the regular brake method really does work for cars like this, because it allows you to get to that exact amount of throttle that you need for the start of a race. Having said that, some cars might be again completely different and look like this instead, a completely flat line. This is, say for example, a big heavy SUV, all-wheel drive, lots of grip, not a lot of power, very good getting off the line, very heavy as well. So it doesn't matter how much throttle you actually apply, you're going to get the no wheel spin whatsoever. So obviously the ideal amount at this point, the ideal place to be is right at the end. And this is where the handbrake method would be the best to use, because you just hold your finger on the handbrake and just completely put the right trigger on all the way down, maximum acceleration. As soon as the race starts, you release the handbrake and then you're off and away you go, with no wheel spin whatsoever and maximum power. So it is slightly different for every car, and most cars will be able to use that regular brake method to, like the Dominator example there, to find the exact amount of throttle that you need for the start of a drag race or the start of an event race, as we saw from the Multi-Class Endurance Championship, things like that. These are the kind of first race starts that you need. So that, I find this really interesting. I hope you haven't been. I hope you made it to the end. If you made it to the end, use graphs in your comment somewhere, and that lets me know that you didn't turn off after 10 minutes. There was no reason to actually stay the whole distance. I was just trying to, because I personally found it interesting to try and work out why that works and why that's the best method, and try to explain that to you guys. So yeah, that's why I left that in at the end, but really you didn't have to watch all the way along here, so I really do appreciate those that did. Yeah, I hope this video has helped you, regardless of whether you're starting regular races like we saw at the start of the video, or event races or drag races like we've seen. I really do hope it's helped you in some way. Let me know all your thoughts down below. Again, leave graphs in your comment if you made it to the end. I really do appreciate the support, and also if you want to know more about anything that we've mentioned in this video, check the links in the description for the other videos, because most likely your answer will be already mentioned in one of those videos. So have a look in the description, links save lives. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.